Jen Schwartz, Senior Vice President of Access Intelligence. Thanks everyone for joining the Renewed Events Roundtable today. Renewed is the open network for specialized subscription membership and event professionals to connect, share best practices, solve challenges, and grow our business. Looks like most everyone has put their company name on here. Actually, no, sorry. Most people have their names on here, not their company name. But if you want to add your company name, you can do that by clicking the three dots next to your picture. Please also feel free to share your video if you're comfortable. I encourage everyone to get involved during the discussion. It's supposed to be an interactive roundtable. And feel free to use any of the reactions or the chat if you want to bring something up. So Kathy, to answer your question, we don't have a specific agenda for each roundtable. I typically send out something the day before, just asking if there's anything in particular folks want to talk about. For this meeting, I didn't actually get any specific questions, but it's interesting that you are working on sales and sponsorship, because I was actually curious what people are doing. We're starting to get back into our live events for the end of the year this year, from pretty much from summer on. I'm just curious if people are running into questions from sponsors or exhibitors as to what kind of policy we have in place, if anyone's instituted sort of the worry-free policy, or if people are allowing for refunds, or if they're coming up with some other creative way to assist sponsors or exhibitors if for some reason you can't have your event. So we can kind of open it with that and then move on to a different topic if folks don't have anything to share relating to sponsors.
I will say that with our sponsors, they all are very, very interested to know what if things don't go quite as planned, since they all have experienced that last year. So we've definitely had to address that.
Mm-hmm. And so are you putting something in writing to let folks know? Like, what we've done is to say that we are, the plan is to have it live. If not, it will be virtual. If not virtual, or if you are not able to do virtual, sometimes we offer them a different option, like a media, e-blast or some other way to fulfill.
For us, we made the decision that it wouldn't be just converted to virtual, because the feedback from our sponsors is that virtual is really not the same value as an in-person. And our event's going to be hybrid. We put some things in place, I guess, to guarantee minimum attendance, which is really, really small, but depending on what happens. And we also have a process in place to make some decisions if things go south, to move the event to a different date with our venue. So we've got that all kind of clear cut. Let's see, what else do we have?
Is this your November event, Kathy?
Yeah.
It's David.
Yeah. Hi, David. Good to see you. Yeah.
I gotta ask you.
November. Yeah.
I have to ask you about your pricing on that too. You got a great pricing metric that I want to completely rip off.
Oh, I have to tell you, literally. So just so everybody knows what David is talking about. We just came up with this random idea and decided to try it. You know how that goes, I'm sure. So we're doing waves. So because we're trying to think through, how do you break through people who haven't been traveling? How do you, so there's like the guaranteed stuff. So we decided to do something with FOMO, like fear of missing out. And so scarce commodity is always something. So we came up with these waves where the first 25 tickets were so dirt cheap. Like even if you're going to be attending the live streaming, you're going to get those tickets because they're so cheap. And so I had some people tell me that they were refreshing their browser like they were going to a concert to try and get the tickets. So that, and we sold out within a few hours. It was pretty cool. So, I mean, granted, we only had 25 of those tickets. We're now in the next wave, but for a B2B conference, that was huge. You know,
And
just
so
to
was
have-
it like a more than 50% discount or off your
It was-
regular?
No, it was a huge, like, so the door price is 2,400, right?
Uh-huh.
And so the price for the kind of the flash sale, instead of doing a flash sale, it was a wave. So you had 25 tickets, and our ornament, our event platform, you could see them ticking down as people were ordering. And we had 25 tickets for $195, which is the same price as our streaming.
Got it. But you could get in the door, the live event with that. Got it.
Right. So that got sold out, and we're now in the next wave, which is more expensive. If you can hold on a sec, I have somebody. I'll be right back. 2 seconds.
It worked with me when I didn't get in the first wave. I felt, like kind of a reject. So maybe I'm a good consumer example. So.
Well, I was actually going to ask Kathy if like a lot of people then just went ahead and signed up, right, for the next level up or something. I'm curious if it generated that. Oh, Kathy, you're back. I was just saying, I wonder did that generate a lot of extra interest, and you actually got more sales at the higher level from folks that missed that first one, or?
Yeah, it's created, you know how everybody here, it's all about creating that buzz and the awareness and momentum, and it helped achieve all of that, even with some inbound sponsorship activities. So that's been good. So I totally rip it off. Try and see what works. And I don't know if our price points were the right one. It was totally a guess. So, it's, but at the end of the day, the venue only has limited inventory. So, we need to get the right people in the door for our sponsors and all this sort of stuff, but there's only limited seats, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on where we are with the pandemic, it'll be, who knows what the end number will be. So.
Wow, that's really interesting. And any other folks doing interesting things with sales or attendee marketing, things that are working for you that you want to share with the group for your events?
The only thing we've been doing at all is just switching sets of kind of webinars into mini series. And we've got one, the second in the series is starting at noon today. And I think we brought in like $8,000 or $10,000 in additional sales. So not a big thing, but it's, and again, you're talking about maybe 40 new customers or something like that. Purchasing something they don't have. So a couple new leads out of those 40, 3 or 4 are new to file.
That's great. So what was that, David? It was a series of webinars, but you specifically put the second one. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, most of our customers in our training division are Passport Pro, so annual site license subscription to our training. But we've combined some of the just routine, 1 or 2 a week into a related series, and those related series have sold outside of the Passport Pro.
Got it. And then you use them for upsell later into that.
We should be so lucky. Yeah. Yeah.
David, what's the timing of the series? Is it every Thursday for a month, or is it like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
The one we're doing right now is every 2 weeks. Generally, every, I don't know if we tried to align it with St. Patrick's Day, who knows? But we did it every 2 weeks. I think that may have been partially at the request of the speakers, trying to prepare to, because a little bit more
We've done a couple of
preparation,
series, and it seems like doing them, we're making for our payroll is a good area for us, and we'll do like payroll week, and that has done better than like 4 Thursdays in a row. And I don't know about the same pattern. I mean, what's more Irish than business valuation? So I
That's
think you
great.
got a good hook there.
And does your payroll week have a special offer, or it's just that you're putting them all in one place so everybody can they don't have to worry about remembering 4 times a month to go in? Or is it like, hey, come to payroll week and you get it for X price or something?
It's a bundled series.
Okay, nice. Awesome. Anything else? Any new marketing? Beth, I know Beth works with me. We've launched the marketing for one of our live events that's happening in early August. You had some pretty good signups from the beginning, right? Didn't you have 8 or 10 people sign up already for that in person?
Actually, I have 29 people now signed up.
That's awesome.
And the average price is around $1,800 around there or so. And so, yeah, I'm very, very excited. Actually, on the first email that went out in January, we actually got people to sign up. I really didn't think people were going to sign up because it's a live event, but I think people are just chomping at the bit to get back into networking and to get out there. So hopefully everything will remain good with COVID, that we can still have that live event. But I'm really excited to see that it's doing well. And then I'm starting another conference in September, and I've already started to get orders for that particular conference. I have a decommissioning strategy and rad waste conference in September, and I'm already getting registrations for those as well. So I'm very happy to see it. And those are all 3 are live events.
That's great. That's great. And so I'm trying to think, we did have, I know in the past we've put an attendee kind of a worry-free language in there. I think we may have, it may be the same this year, where we say our intent is to have it, in person. And if not, then, we'll either transition you to the 2022 event, or you could take advantage of our newsletter or one of our other options this year. So I think we're still doing that.
Yeah, I haven't put it in my marketing as of yet, but.
Yeah. So Beth, David's asking in the chat, did you change anything specifically for the marketing language, the offer? Did you put anything in there that maybe about like how we're going to have the event, or anything that you felt tipped the scale?
No, I haven't, but on our website, there is a specific page that's dedicated just to COVID and safety and what we plan on doing and how the hotel we're using. Marriott has this Marriott cleanliness program that they're doing. And so in the confirmation emails and in there, I do talk about how we're being safe with it. But I don't mention that we're going to go virtual, since we did go virtual with 2 of them last year. And they were okay, but they definitely were not like the previous conferences. So I think people really want to just get together.
This group wants live, yeah.
And this is Shannon from Simplify Compliance. Beth, we're definitely taking a very similar approach, where we have a dedicated COVID safety tab on our webpage for all of our live events, that we have planned for this fall. But I want to be careful of not being too specific of exactly what the safety measures will be, because things are changing so quickly. So we're stating that we'll follow all meeting and gathering guidelines from CDC and from the World Health Organization, follow all food and beverage guidelines as dictated by the hotel. And that, as of right now, masks are still required in all public spaces. And I'm not sure about what you or others have heard, but, Marriott and Hyatt have both come out and said that they are going to stick with all their health and safety protocols as of right now, and that masks will still be mandated in all public spaces, regardless of what state they fall in, and regardless of, kind of any federal, recommendations. So that's good to know. And I think we'll put our attendees at ease. So that's what we have captured on our web pages as well.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we've done the same thing as a company. We've just decided that doesn't matter if the state's open. We're telling people that if you come to our event, you still need to have a mask and social distance, and we'll make that happen. What are the other folks doing? Kathy? Yeah.
We basically have a similar thing. It's an FAQ that we covered a lot of different things that starts with the health and safety. And what we're stating is that we will follow the our events in New York City. So we'll follow the CDC in New York guidelines at the time of the conference. And it could be who knows what it's going to be in November. We could be back to 100% capacity and whatever. So we basically kind of outline what they're doing now at the venue and how things might be different. So for example, it would be plated or boxed versus buffet. There's different things like that. So we just kind of touch on that a little bit, but we state that it'll be at the time of the conference. Those are the guidelines that we'll be using.
Yeah, that's definitely a good idea. Other folks for that? So we actually did a couple of our events. We've done surveys to people because we're trying to gauge interest in attending live, and we're seeing obviously the sponsors and exhibitors are willing to come back pretty quickly. We're not so sure on the attendee side yet, how people feel, but we just did one recently for one of my events that's upcoming in July in California. And we had about 200 responses, and I would say probably 3/4 of the responses were from what we call the quote private sector, and the other 25% was from the end users. But interestingly, the percentages of who would come was like almost the exact same amount. So it didn't really matter if you were a private sector or an end user, you pretty much said the same thing. And it was roughly, I'd say 1/3 were like, yeah, definitely I'm in, or I'm planning on it. About 1/3 were maybe unsure. I think we called it unsure, right? And then about 38% were like a hard no, or I'm not going to come. So, so it kind of goes along with what we were thinking. We assumed if we had live events that maybe we assume for on-site, roughly 50-60% might come, obviously a much lower number. We're budgeting for much lower numbers than 2019, but of the people we do think will come, that's sort of what we're hearing. I do feel like that unsure number, that's the big question mark, right? Because that's 30% of your people. They could decide they're willing to go if they are vaccinated and able to travel, or if their company's travel restrictions are lifted. But I thought that was interesting, and it kind of goes back to, I think Kathy mentioned, just having the either an on-demand portal or some kind of hybrid option. Doesn't necessarily have to be a live hybrid, but just something for that other, say, 40% of the folks that probably
I think it's and we did a survey. Our numbers are slightly different than yours. So we had the 20% hell no, we won't go. 30%, please show me when and where to show up. I've got to get out or I'm going to go crazy. And then the other basically 50% were like, wow, depends. Yeah. So, but the challenge is, so, with our, there's some sponsors. So one of the companies that we work with to provide is Visa. So because anybody that's processing a credit card, is going to be working with Visa, and they have a corporate policy that nobody's traveling until 2022. So, we needed to think through how to bring them in. So for them, they're an important presenter on whatever their latest and greatest rules are for card not present merchants. And so we'll be beaming them in, if you will. And so we had to figure that out, and that was part of our mix in making the decision to go hybrid.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And it's funny, I was talking to one of my brand leaders yesterday, and she's hearing some of that. Some of her clients are just, it's a hard no for this year for travel. but then other ones are telling her, well, yeah, we have a travel ban, but we can get around it. We just have to, get it approved, right? So, and I think that there's probably more companies as we go forward will likely be doing that. I think people will start letting their sales teams travel first, and then maybe attendees. I don't know. It's hard to know, but that's what we're most worried about, is that we'll have all these people there ready to talk about their products and services and no people to listen.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge.
I can only, I'm more talking about my social community, because we don't have any big events that require travel that we're immediately marketing right now. But among, the business people I'm in touch with, I'm hearing a lot more anxiety about airports and planes than hotels. So, I mean, when I hear travel ban and things like that, I wonder, I'm just having a lot of conversations with people who say, I haven't been on a plane in a year and a half.
Yep.
I'm thinking of doing a trip in a month, but maybe not. So I think maybe the health stuff around the fact that the airlines are much safer, than, how many colds and other things have I gotten from airline trips over the last 20 years, thanks to the general bad health. Now they're not letting those people on. So I think there is something positive about the fact that the airlines actually feel healthier than they've ever have felt, as someone who's flown a bit in the last couple of months. So, but
have the planes been full, David, or like, are they? I know Delta's still not selling middle seats, but have you found it?
Yeah, and I'm in business class is packed. But everybody's wearing masks, and they're screening for visual illness, which they, I think I may be a magnet. If somebody's, dying of emphysema, they invariably end up sitting next to me and coughing on me the whole way across the country. So I have a personal, thing on that. But no, the planes feel a lot safer. They're not serving food, so people aren't they're limiting the way they're doing food, so people aren't sitting with their masks off.
We're finding that the travel restrictions are increasingly becoming more corporate restrictions than personal ones. It's not a personal sense of safety. Some of the same people who've told us they can't attend one of our, Q3, Q4 type events. It's because of professional that, and we're dealing with health systems, and with health systems, there's the added layer of kind of optics of being out and traveling. But those same people are filling up Florida resorts, as we speak, on spring break. So it's just we're just trying to figure out how to gauge the downside of the curve, as travel restrictions are coming out. And we've been pretty aggressive about getting out with events. We've got a couple in late spring, and then we have a bit of a pause until later in the summer and fall, which we expect to start to see a more consistent recovery. And we're seeing the same thing with our sponsor base. There are inherent difficulties in forming, the type of relationships that they want to form with a virtual call. We do tons of them, but when you're trying to convince a health system for a multi-million-dollar spend on a piece of technology or consulting or whatever it is, you need a better handshake than often we can provide virtually. So we're going to fail forward fast as best we can, and hope to be in the right position when travel and live events start to pick up again.
Yeah, and Jim, I saw in the chat you said roughly 75% of your vertical has travel restrictions, right, in healthcare space?
Of the 75%, I did a survey of we have a CFO group. So, you know, we of those, we have 20 who are attending. Of the 16 or so who would like to attend but can't, we asked them why. 75% of those responses are travel restrictions.
Got it. Okay.
And the travel restrictions themselves are, they're getting into fudgeability now. It's like, well, we have travel restrictions, but our executive team is reviewing that next week and they're thinking about lifting it or whatever. So,
right.
You know, I think they're increasingly also sort of looking at some of the, it's not so much the networking events. A lot of it is getting out to some of the annual events. Networking is part of it, but there is a serious need for a lot of them, the way they conduct business, to get back out again at some point here in the next few months. So we're just monitoring that and doing the best we can, like everybody.
Absolutely. Anyone else have any survey responses from their groups they'd like to share?
No survey, but hi everyone.
Hi, John.
I'm with a company that is a consumer attending and exhibiting and sponsoring, and also we were looking to do pre-COVID some events that likely would be free for consumers but underwritten by vendors, exhibitors, etc. Fortunately, we didn't dive too deep into that before the pandemic struck. I think Jim, and again, we're in healthcare as health leaders, I think he really struck on an interesting point related to optics, particularly again in certain industries more than others, but certainly in healthcare, we're seeing that both from being involved in events and also that which we would look to plan for Q3 and Q4. I don't think a lot, you know, in healthcare, one of the big stories of the pandemic was a meeting in Cambridge, Massachusetts, of a biotech company that resulted in a super spreader event that I suspect many of you know or know of. And we're reaching out to pharma companies to send teams or underwrite or be it a thing. Optics is not good. I don't know if there's any hack, or you just got to kind of take that beating. You know, Jim mentioned, you know, fail forward, keep that momentum could be about the only thing to do. And the other thing for us is, again, a lot of, we'd love to have a consumer health type of event. People who are living with cancer or autoimmune diseases, vaccinated or not, ain't coming out. They're just not. So we know we're gonna, I don't know a good way to address that one either, but if you have populations of people who aren't coming out no matter what you're dangling in front of their face, is again, I wish I had something to bring to this dance to at least start it, but we're just kind of stuck on the fence on a couple of these.
Yep.
And John, we're also seeing the vaccination thing is big for us. You know, in healthcare, most of our executives have been vaccinated because they're, you know, in that frontline category in many ways, and that's certainly factoring in. So it's less about optics of them bringing it home. It's more of a, you know, are you out doing sort of professional networking and, you know, in nice places while, you know, we're still in this. So, you know, we're still in the tunnel, so to speak. Your point's well taken about that biotech event. It was the fear throughout the pandemic that you might bring it back to your hospital and to your family. That's less of an issue now. It's more of the, just what are you doing? Why are you leaving when we're still in the middle of this?
This is Shannon. I just wanted to jump in real quick because I think one of the things that will help events in general is for the CDC to actually come out and say vaccinated people can travel. Right now, they've been very, open with what vaccinated people can do, but they're still saying don't travel, which is definitely not working in our favor. So I think, and I listened to a good webinar yesterday by Hyatt, and they were mentioning that, through different channels, they're hearing that CDC is likely to say that vaccinated people can travel come April when they have a little bit more data under their belt. So that, I think, will certainly be a good push to help us in securing and seeing some different survey results as well.
Yeah, it feels like, remember how quickly things changed a year ago this week? It feels to me the same thing is now beginning to have, like, dosages are opening up at vaccine sites. They're, both here in Canada, I've been following closely, they're opening things up rapidly. So I do have the feeling we're going to see some clearer statements of what vaccinated people can do. I even guess next week, but you're probably right. Hyatt, I'm sure, is right. It's more likely to be April, but we're in a period of rapid change again, just kind of in the opposite direction, I hope. So.
Yeah, I'm right outside. I'm in Fairfax County, Virginia, outside DC, and we just today, after 380 days, I think, of schooling that's mostly virtual, the county said that come fall, all kids will be in school for 5 days. So that's huge. So that's the other piece, right? A lot of these parents literally can't go anywhere because they're, my kids are in high school, but, they can't go anywhere because their kids are not in school. So I think that will help as well. And I feel like DC's maybe California is a close second, but I feel like DC and California, like they just haven't opened like some other parts of the country have. My colleagues down in Houston, their kids have been going to school for months. So I think if we can go come fall, then that's a good sign too.
I think some of the challenges though might be with the schools, because around here too, I'm just outside the, north of New York City. Mm-hmm. And so we've had hybrid, and they just did a whole thing with a survey to see what parents wanted. And of course, the people with younger kids, many of them want their kids in 5 days, and if they can get them in. And then you can see it as the age goes up, the high school, it's about 50-50. But I think one of the challenges is going to be when we have, because since they just even started announcing it this week, we seem to be getting these letters every day from the superintendent. Oh, another case here, another case there. And so I think the challenge is for some of these parents, it's still going to be like if the kids go back to school, but then all of a sudden, if there's an outbreak,
and they have to stay home again. Yeah.
Right. So those that are work from home, where it's been such a challenge and they're happy to get their kids out, they don't know if their kids are suddenly going to be back at their door again.
Very good point.
Yeah. And I just wrote in the chat, so I live in northern Massachusetts, and my town just voted last night that all elementary kids are going back 5 days a week starting next week.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, and so if you choose to go back, you're going back. There's no virtual option fallback. And if you're virtual, it's asynchronous. So there's no opportunity for them to engage with their teachers anymore, which is really trying to push parents to get the kids back. But, Tim, to your point, if there is an outbreak, I think the school has to react and bring that virtual back. But they're saying, really, we're trying to get back as quickly as possible to what is normal.
Yeah.
I think they're really trying to actually, the letter I got yesterday, which was the second one of the day yesterday. I mean, it's just been, it's so crazy. We were doing pretty well, but it's very kind of aggressive language, kind of reminding people that it's actually not the kids aren't getting it in school. It's when they're outside and families are doing things and whatever. And I think that's where the challenge is. So yeah, our school district is getting much more aggressive in their language about it.
Well, and I think that kind of goes back to what Jim said, right? A lot of the healthcare folks are like, yeah, I don't want to necessarily go to a conference, which I might view as sort of, an additive to my job, a perk, so to speak, just to potentially be in front of people that when I go back, I could potentially spread that. So I think it'll be critical for us when we are on site to have a lot of those, things in place so that hopefully people will feel like they're in a safe area, like the schools have done. I mean, we've had a couple outbreaks here and there with our schools. We've been back for about a month, 2 days a week. And they basically said, well, the health department has contacted anyone that was in touch with that person. And if you didn't hear from the health department, your kid still goes to school. So, but yeah, definitely not a perfect system yet, for sure. Anyone else have ideas on that?
I had a question. A couple of people have mentioned hybrid. I'm just interested to know what your definitions of hybrid are. And we have a very small event, probably 100 people or so, planned for early December. So we're just starting to think about what that event might look like, and we're discussing whether that should be real, virtual, or hybrid. My instinct was to go fully virtual. I'm being urged to reconsider that and at least go hybrid. I'm wondering whether an event of that size, what the economics is like for hybrid, and therefore what you mean by hybrid. And I guess I'm saying, what happens if hybrid means there are like 10 people in the room and the rest are all virtual? How does that look? How does that feel if the thing of live is I'm there to meet people, and actually 90% of the people that are here aren't here in the same room as me? So I'm just interested to know what people's experience of, or what they mean by hybrid, and the cost of it, and the cost of doing it, because you've got to have cameras on site and all that sort of stuff around to properly stream it and stuff. So
Warren, we're doing hybrid, not live. The sessions will all be available recorded, because that's how we're doing we're asking all of our speakers for an event in July, and it's usually about a 250 person event. We're hoping we can get 150 at the event. We're offering a on-demand experience, and what we're asking all of the presenters to do is submit their recorded presentations ahead of time. So it also gives us that backup for the live event. If that speaker can't come, we can still use his recorded presentation. We would run it even at the live event. So we have that backup. But our virtual experience, part of the hybrid, will not be live. We've polled our attendees, and I shouldn't call it a poll. Well, it is a poll because it wasn't very scientific. We reached out to a group of them and found that for the virtual experience, the live part of it for the presentations really wasn't that valuable to them. Yeah, they said we'd rather watch them on demand, because we can do that at 2 in the afternoon or 2 in the morning. We don't have to set our schedule around it. So that was a huge relief for us, because that's like you said, that's a huge expense doing the streaming.
Anyone else have want to share?
This is Kathy. The venue that we're partnering with has a lot of AV kind of included in the cost of the facility. So we will be paying for some extra things, but they have a lot of expertise in kind of doing that broadcast quality stream with the lower thirds, and they actually did a pivot this year because they just have a bunch of these event places, and what they pivoted was using their event places almost as TV studios for event folks like all of us. So we'll be leveraging that. So it'll be a slightly different cost equation than hiring a full on video crew and all of that. And we will be doing live simulcast. So, we're expecting, 400 people in the room with the COVID kind of stuff at this point. And then we'll be doing the live streaming from there. And then everything is recorded, and all tickets get the on-demand version afterwards. So that's how we're going to do it.
Yeah, we kind of have both. What I'm calling a hybrid at our organization is the streaming aspect of it, whether it's the whole thing live at the same time, or maybe you're streaming just a track of something, and then I'm calling on demand sort of the back end. So I think what we're trying to do for most of our events, except the ones earlier in the year where we're not sure how many people are comfortable traveling, but the ones later in the year, if we still have a big number that aren't going to travel, then we'll offer them an on-demand version, maybe after the fact. So we'll get them all taped. It'll be included in the AV cost. people can go in after the fact for a fee to watch the sessions, but obviously they won't be able to take advantage of asking the speakers any questions or networking or anything like that, but it would be a component to be available after the fact. So
Yeah,
sort of what we're thinking.
Just on the cost side, when we have done, because we've done hybrid events for a bunch of years before COVID, but usually we stick to one camera and, like Jen said, one track. Warren, so if we've got multiple tracks for the live event, we'll only do one. And also we've got an agreement with a video company in Portland, Oregon, where BVR is, and so we've generally found it's cheaper to fly them to a venue and absolutely stay away from the hotel staff, because then your only expense is hooking up, to a solid Wi-Fi network, which can also be, hotels are terrible on some of the charges for internet still, but definitely, Warren, if you are doing hybrid, it's going to be cheaper to have your own video people show up and sit in the back of the room than it is to work with a venue. If that helps.
David, I'd just caution anybody on the labor and union costs that potentially could come in from various hotels in different cities if you do hire in your own crews.
Yeah, you gotta, yes, yeah, it could backfire. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
When people are streaming and doing all of that, how are you're just doing the content and not trying to bring them in any other part of your conference? I'm curious how people look at that.
Well, for the virtual, we're streaming, and yeah, they're a part of anything virtual, right? So if we have a networking lounge, which we do virtually, or an exhibit hall, they can do all of that. Once we go back to live, though, I'm not sure how much I will build out on the virtual platform of all those things. So that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's actually what I was trying to figure out. In a hybrid environment, how do you bring people into the other parts? And but I don't know what others have seen, but for us, when we were full virtual, most people wanted the content, and we're not really, other than the sponsors, into hanging out in the virtual exhibit hall. So I'm curious what other people experience.
Yeah, I think that's partly what was behind my question. Actually, was about that. Was when they had the virtual, the networking was pretty good, even though we only had about 80 people there. But people did a talk. I think we did like 3 talks in a row, and then at the end of a 3-talk session, we then open up Zoom rooms for each of the speakers, so that at the end of that session, delegates could go in to choose a speaker they could go and hang out with so it was designed to replicate the coffee queue, if you like, so that people could approach them. And that seemed to work quite well, rather than the 10 minutes at the end of every talk. For questions. And that's the thing that worked well for us on the virtual side, but I don't know how well that would work on the hybrid side, because you can't do both. You can't have kind of live questions in the room and the Zoom room thing unless they're sequential, if you like. So
this is Shannon. I think one of the things that you could do as a suggestion for us at Simplify Compliance, we're not doing what a typical defined hybrid would be. Instead, we have our live in person, and then a week or 2 later, we're hosting a virtual event where all the live in-person attendees get complimentary access, and it's bonus content for them. And for the virtual only attendees, it's new content. Okay, so they don't get access to the live, but the live attendees get both access to the live and the virtual. But one solution that you could do for those of you out there that are doing the traditional hybrid is, if you have a conference app, encourage both your live and your virtual attendees to submit their questions through the app versus a traditional Q&A, microphone in your aisles, and then have a room moderator reading off those questions, so everybody feels really, a part of that Q&A experience.
Shannon,
And-
that's a really good point. In fact, we like to encourage even our live attendees to submit their questions through that. We've had a lot of people request to do it that way, especially when we had live events that involved people from lots of different countries that weren't comfortable with, standing up and saying something in not their native language. So that's a really good point in saying, hey, submit them through the app. One of the fun things that we're considering, we're doing a live event, our biggest event will be live in September. And when it is live in a regular year, we have about 3,500 people there. And one of the highlights of that is the opening night reception. So this year and we know it'll be a smaller crowd, but we're considering doing, like webcams at the reception to allow people to interact and maybe, email people beforehand and say, hey, you're going to be live, I'm going to be virtual, go to the webcam and we can chat. So we're trying to come up with things like that for even, that kind of a really informal networking, as well as the idea that Warren said with the speakers and having those Zoom chat rooms at certain times with speakers.
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, that is good.
Looks like John asked in the chat, are folks using either a webinar vendor or a live virtual event vendor they can recommend? We use 6Connects with StreamYard and Remo for the networking. We also use BigMarker. We've used Hopin, I think is the other one we have.
Yep, I've heard of them.
Hey, Jennifer, Matthew here. My camera. Sorry. You said you did use BigMarker? I just had this really negative conversation with somebody about BigMarker, and anybody who's had a good experience, can you give any more depth about that? I'm very curious since the review surprised me.
Yeah, so we actually use them for our webinars mostly now. We have used them last year. We did use them for a virtual event. We didn't have any issues with it. Actually, people liked it. I prefer, for some of the events I'm doing virtual, I prefer 6Connects because that one literally does look like you're at a trade show. Like you go to an exhibit hall, it looks like a real exhibit hall. Looks like a real networking lounge.
Is it all 3D? Is that a 3D experience? Like in Toronto?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And BigMarker is more that, you have an exhibit, a quote exhibit hall, but it's mostly like just each company's information on a page, right? So it's just not quite
2D.
as dynamic looking. But yeah, I mean, we did have one issue about a month ago with someone who was in Europe. Their presentation, we had asked him to send it ahead of time, so we had it, and he wasn't able to because of the size of it. And then when he tried to share it, like there was a little bit of an issue, there. But I think that was more kind of user error.
I feel that happens all the time everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. But other than that, I think it's been okay. I don't know if other people have insights.
David, are you able to share your experience with BigMarker? I'm sorry, I don't mean to hijack.
No, sure, yeah.
But David said that he doesn't have quite as bad a review.
But I have to be careful because I have the feeling Natasha is our Natasha. So as I said to everyone, I'm saying it's okay, but the person in our company who actually works with it very closely apparently is pretty upset with it. So you might have to take my relatively positive review of BigMarker with a grain of salt there. So, but again, we're using it mostly just for the straight up webinars, and doing both real time and we do recorded sessions through it for live, live virtual. So it's generally worked and, doesn't crash and that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was more of an issue of being on the back end of it or watching it from the front end, your perceptions can be very different, right? And I think that we see responsiveness of the actual platform company, ability to address the issue in real time. Technical issues happen everywhere, but when you're on the front end and you're moderating or handling the Q&A, your experience can be very positive, while on the back end there could be chaos. So.
I suspect that's it.
Just like in a live event, right?
Yeah, right. It's funny how different that is and how you have to kind of learn this. Yeah. And each tech tool seems to have a different, it can vary on the day. It doesn't necessarily have to be that the company is not capable. Yeah,
and we've had it where the platform provider would have several companies on the same day doing an event, and that will mess us up, you know, like, so we've seen kind of all of it. But that's sort of another reason why this whole hybrid thing is stressful, because, you know, think about all the people you have on site. Well, then if you have a hybrid at the same time, you have to have just as many people on your online version. And I just don't have enough staff to like make that happen well, which is another part of the reason that we're trying to do an on-demand on the back end, so that, you know, we don't have 10 to 20 people, you know, trying to manage two aspects of an event from a live and a on demand or streaming.
Yeah, I will say Shannon's way of doing, let's say, the asynchronous live is the on demand. I think it's the World Wireless Congress or something great. They've been doing that for years. So it's one of those conferences that have like 35,000 people in Geneva every year type of thing.
They've got it down to a science,
and what they do is in the regional, they do it on demand. So, you know, they'll do it in Brazil, they'll do it here, and they'll have all the recorded sessions and then do them regional throughout the world. So it's really, and they've been doing it for years. So it's obviously a very successful way of executing that model.
That is good. That's good to know.
We've had specific our big show in September is also it has a trade show component to it as well. And you know, in the effort we did the whole thing virtual in 2020, and the digital showroom kinds of things really weren't that great. And so we've had a couple of our exhibitors express desire to do kind of their own live streaming from their booth kinds of things. So, and we're like, hey, go for it, because we don't want to invest in technology to make that available to more people. You know, even if it's like a Facebook live stream, you know, why not? So that's something to consider too. Just encourage everyone to do their own thing.
Yep, that's really cool. Good idea.
Don't you think too? I think that people are a lot more accepting because of everything that's gone on in the past year, that everything doesn't have to be so flashy and slick. I mean, I see it all the time. I deal a lot in commercial real estate, and there's so many people that are now doing like these LinkedIn chats back and forth, and it's just, you know, it's people in their office looking the way we're all looking now. And I feel like what's been kind of nice is it's allowed that to sort of like dial back from these overly flashy, slick things that don't necessarily add to really, it's the content that we all, you know, that you're looking for and the experience. And it doesn't have to have, you know, the best lighting, the best graphics.
Yeah, all that sizzle.
Yeah.
I had a question. Somebody mentioned to me the other day, they're starting to look at hotel contracts for 2022 and beyond. I don't know if any of you have, or you're in that process, but I'm hearing sort of anecdotally that some of the hotels are demanding more of kind of cancellation fees up front. And in some cases, you know, 50% cancellation, like several months out versus, you know, what used to maybe be only a few months out. I'm just curious if anyone has seen that or heard about that, working with any hotels for next year. Not yet. Okay. Hopefully it stays anecdotal and it's not really going to be the new norm, right? For contracts to be ironclad.
Just so abusive.
So Yeah.
After what we've been through, that's what they're going to put in the contracts. That's really just not.
Yeah.
That's not helpful. That's not collaborative.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. So.
I think it probably depends on the size of your event too. With our one in July, Omni has been really great to work with, and we had to bump it from last July to this July, and they were fine with that. And even saying that for this year, if you have to bump it again, we're going to work with you. Yeah, they've made any promises. Yeah, it's probably still going to cost us some money, but yeah, they've been pretty fair. Marriott was a little more punitive last year, but it was early on. We had to move an event that was scheduled for April last year, and Marriott kind of was. They didn't know what was going. They just didn't know what to do because it was so early. But fortunately, the event that we do, that one involves it's anchored in Kansas City, so it's always the Marriott Kansas City, and so they were able to knuckle under after a while.
I heard some good news in a conversation I had with MPI that Marriott, Hilton, I want to say Hyatt, have all come up with a tech program, which is available online for you to look at. If I find the link during this, I'll pop it in the chat, but it's telling you how they can help you with your hybrid event. And so if you guys are looking for that, they can give you a little, it's a primer. It's not a detail, but if you have a conference planner at any of those hotels, you might want to ping them and share that idea with them. Like, tell me more about your technological solutions for my hybrid event.
Yeah, it's a really good point. We have about 5 minutes left. Any burning questions people had before we? David, do you want to talk about your On the Offense? Is it next Thursday? Is that right?
Sure. Yeah, we're got Victoria and Ashley Friedland from both from the UK on the topic is the future of communities and how it changes our businesses, strategies for growth. Ashley in particular has written a bunch about migrating from the subscription model to the enterprise sales model and how neither of those models match with what's happening in the community world, like a community like Renewed. So how do you adjust your sales structure, your marketing structure? So it definitely affects events, marketing, and what you try to do with events and how you try to position them. Ashley in particular talks a lot about how events are often sold sort of as a transactional, it's one and done. We got the subscription, or we got the attendee, we got whatever. And in the community world, there are a lot of different pricing and marketing models. So
great, that's awesome. And is that so? Is that the 25th?
25th.
It's the 25th at 11 Eastern time. The UK is 4 hours off for the next week and a half, I guess, because we do daylight savings time. So, which caused, incidentally, it caused 6 of us to goof up yesterday because there was the consultative sales session. I don't know if anybody went to that, but I had signed up for it. And of course, due to the time gap, there were 6 of us who showed up an hour late. So we had a mini group meeting of 6 people on the line. The event had actually finished.
Oh, that's so funny.
So,
that's great. Hey, that was Ashley and who? Ashley from Guild, and who else will be in it?
Victoria
Meller,
yeah, who did sold her first company at Conference Executive Board. So she's got a very precise professional definition of what a community is and what that means. So and her new business is also, small community development, sponsored small community. So two people who have thought about this a lot.
That's
Great.
great. Thanks.
Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining Renewed. Don't forget we have our Slack channel that you can check out anytime. We also have our next events roundtable on April 21st. It's always the third Wednesday of the month. And thanks again. It was good to see each of you.